Was your first film The Devil's Own, and you were cut out of it?
That is correct. I have been
That's got to be
cut out.
Devastating.
Oh, devastating. Now, I can look back on it now, and it's funny, but it was not funny at the time. Subsequent to that, once I got on the other side of the camera and in the editing room, you realize how often things need to be cut out that have nothing to do with performance. So that made me feel a lot better. And it just happened again.
It happened.
It just happened again.
Now
Last
that you
weekend.
are like Mr. Show Business and in control of everything, you got cut out again?
Last weekend, I was cut out of a small little independent movie. Maybe is it a Swedish film or like a French film? Deadpool. And
Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yes.
You're in that movie?
No! I was, until Ryan cut me out.
Oh, here's the sign.
Yeah, that's
Coming
it.
soon. Ryan Rodney Reynolds Memorial Park.
Soon is relative, but yes, coming.
And the more people that come here, the more people that are going to start coming here.
That's the idea. We want to revitalize this whole area here. And as you can see, even with some of the construction that's happening, there are already stores that are popping up.
And I mean, there was no signage on these, you know, when we first started the process. Next week, there's a town hall. I will interact with, you know, the townsfolk, local businesses, get their feedback.
You're the face of the operation?
I'll dress up.
Great.
You know,
Can we send Kelsey?
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today I have what Wikipedia refers to as actor, writer, producer, podcaster, businessman, and director. And
Wow.
You are all of those things. This is Rob McElhenney. Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
What do you think when you get all those? You are an entrepreneur. I think I could add that too, and all those things. Do you see yourself that way?
I think my mom does, and I think she was probably the person that went into Wikipedia and added all of that.
It's pretty remarkable. But did you set out that way when you started out in acting and moved to LA? I'm going to do it all.
No. It was just purely out of desperation. I wasn't working. I wasn't getting any jobs. And
Right.
I was challenged by my manager at the time, who's still my manager, Nick Frankel at 3 Arts, to write something, to learn how to write. So I bought all the requisite screenwriting books and watched as much television and as many movies as I could, and I just studied it until I could take a pass at something.
That's good advice for anybody, That's what I did. I said, I'm going to be in show business, but I decided at one point, the only real way in is writing because they can't stop you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the advice that I give anybody that asks about what's the best way into the business. And everybody who's watching this knows that there are a million different ways to get into the business, but one surefire way to make sure you have materials to generate it yourself.
Welcome to Wrexham. You have 6 Emmy nominations right now. You won, the show won 5 Emmys in its first season. And now it's in its second season. You've got 6 nominations. How does that feel?
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Just to be recognized by our community feels so good. And I'm really mostly happy for the town of Wrexham, the football club certainly, but just the people in the town to be celebrated like they are. That was always the dream, not just to be celebrated by audiences, but also our creative community who can recognize all of the effort and work that went into it from our crew that's on the ground in Wrexham all the way to our post facility here in Los Angeles.
And I have to say, to come here today to do this interview, I had to leave this guy who's replacing our floor in our kitchen, and I had to leave him there in the house. And I said, I'm leaving now. He said, where are you going? I'm going to do an interview. With who? And I said, Rob McElhenney, and welcome to Wrexham. And he goes, oh, I haven't missed an episode.
That's
this
great.
is my floor guy. And he said, oh my God, you've got to ask. You know what that show's about? It's about community. It's about that town. And he says he's totally hooked on it. He says he hasn't missed an episode.
That's great to hear. The thing that I hear more than anything about the show is people come up to me and they say, I didn't even know that I liked sports, let alone football.
Right.
And now I follow every game of Wrexham. And that's such a great feeling because that is what we set out to do. That was in the original conception. I wanted to make a show that was a love letter to working class. And working class people you can find in every continent on the planet.
But it's a roll of the dice because you guys went out and bought this team. I mean, you put your money in there and then smartly, I think, created the documentary around it, which has made them such a hit in sports, in the sports world.
Yeah, that was always the plan.
You knew that was a way in to get attention for them.
Yes, and in fact, it was baked into the entire endeavor from the very beginning. This is an industry interview, so people can understand this process of how difficult it is to sell a show, regardless of what your track record is, just because there's just so much competition out there. So I had this idea one night, and I, in a flurry, wrote an email to a few people, and then I Googled, how do you buy a football team? For real. And this gentleman's name came up who worked for this agency in New York City, and I called him. And then from there, once he said, okay, I think this is a possibility, the next call I made was to John Landgraf.
Wow. At FX, who you obviously, for those who don't know, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the longest running sitcom in television history, and that has been on FX all these 16, 17
Yes,
seasons.
Yes.
And that's the head of FX.
John, yes, he's the head of FX and has been for a very long time. He's also one of my really great friends. And believe me, he's passed on things that I brought him. He's very clear with what he likes and what he doesn't like. And so I knew if I went for a walk with him, on a walk with him, and I pitched out how I saw this going over the next, this was 3 years ago, how I saw it going over the next 5 to 10 years. And I said, I think it can only happen if I can underwrite a tremendous amount of the cost, but also of the opportunity by having a docuseries.
Wow. And now look at it. As I mentioned, all the Emmys, it's in its third season now. And I don't know, how long can it go on? Because the town is there and we're seeing all these great stories. And I suppose it's an endless well of humanity.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, I have always, I mean, it's sort of the foundation of my career. Sunny is a great example. It's a show that's been on for so long, and people ask, well, how can you continue to come up with fresh ideas? And the truth is that the world and humanity and our culture just continues to create opportunities to tell great stories.
Yeah. And, and that can go on forever. Clearly it's going to, I think. But that takes a lot of time to turn out a show like that, which you co-created. You're a writer on, you're the star of. I mean, it's a great ensemble and it's always fresh. But you know what's interesting about Sunny is the Emmys regularly ignore it. Now here you are, and up for more Emmys and things for another show. That one so deserves it, and it's so been overlooked, except for, I think, 3 years where it got stunt coordinator nominations.
Yeah. And well, I didn't know that Sunny was known for its stunts, but but here we are. Yeah. And look, there's just there's so much competition out there, and I think, I stopped lamenting it after season 5 or 6 because I realized that you either get on those lists and on that train very early on in the run, or you don't. And Sunny was just not a very popular show when it first came out. That's the nature of satire too. Sometimes it takes some time to gain traction.
It was what they call a basic cable show when it came on too.
That's right. And we were on at 10:30 at night in the middle of the week because a lot of the subject matter was dicey. And so thankfully, John Landgraf and everybody over at FX really supported the show and kept it on the air. Yeah. And so again, for as many times as maybe we have conversations about it or I want to feel sorry for us, believe me, there's no reason to feel sorry for us. And there are so many great shows that get overlooked year after year. And it's not even that they're necessarily being overlooked. There's just only so many slots and there's so much great content.
Yeah. And on top of all that, Mythic Quest is coming back for a 4th season.
Yes.
And have you shot the 4th season?
We have. We've shot the entire 4th season and we've edited 75% of it, and we're almost finished.
And that's a great show, too. I mean, it's really caught on with an audience. I remember one show during the pandemic of that was just beyond brilliant, that was all done virtually, basically.
Yeah.
And it was stunning, the level of creativity and skill that went into doing a show on that level when you're faced with a pandemic where you couldn't do it any other way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been, it's a great show and an incredible ensemble. Really, really well written. Interestingly enough, it's probably my best reviewed show. It just has a great story around the story, and it's got a really fierce, loyal fan base.
I'll say my wife said to say to you, she's never played a game in her life or anything, discovered that show and loves it, and particularly loves it because it brings in key women characters in a field where they're not known. And that's something you're doing with Wrexham too, now too. Is that key for you to
Oh
do
yes,
that?
yes. I mean, what we try to do, what I certainly try to do with any of my shows or anything that I work on, is to take a different path in or a different look at what's been traditionally done and try to look at a story through a different lens. So you can only do that by surrounding yourself with other great storytellers who can provide that for you, because I can't always, I can look through the lens of humanity and recognize that we all share so many commonalities. And then there are things that are very specific to people and their experiences that I can't necessarily bring. And the only way you get to work with that material is by asking people and letting them tell their story.
How do you have time to do all this stuff? I mean, with a one situation comedy or a comedy series, I don't like to call it sitcom, actually, to tell you the truth, because that was an old term where they invent a situation and then they do it. This is a real funny comedy series. But to do that, to do Mythic Quest, to do Wrexham, and to do all your other stuff, I mean, you've become an entrepreneur, you've got a whiskey, you've got all this business stuff going on. Where do you find the time?
I have an incredible support system, and I partner with really talented, ambitious, driven, kind people. I have a wonderful family, and Caitlin and I have made.
This is Caitlin Olsen,
Yes.
who, by the way, is nominated for an Emmy.
Yes, she
as
is.
well. It's all in the family this year for
Yes.
Emmys. She's in Hacks.
Yes.
So
I believe that this is going to be the year of Caitlin Olsen. She's nominated for Hacks. She did just an absolutely incredible job on that show. And in fact, the episode specifically that she's nominated for, halfway through the episode, I realized that this was the best thing she's ever done. And I found that I was so happy for her and devastated for me, because I've tried desperately to make sure that people, shine a light on her and make sure that people saw her brilliance. And it took HBO to do it.
wow, and she's got other stuff she's doing now.
She does. She has a new show coming out in the fall called High Potential on ABC and
Wow.
Hulu and Disney. Yeah, she's having a great year.
And you have two kids.
We have two boys, 13 and 12, and we've now found ourselves in a really great position, because we want to spend as much time with them as possible, but they want to spend, increasingly with each year that goes by, they want to spend less time with us. So sometimes I come home and I've rushed home, as everybody probably has a version of the story, anybody with kids. You're sitting on the 405 and you can't wait to get home, and you get home and you walk in the door and you expect, your kids to come rushing up to you and with a hug, and they're not even there. They're out doing out with their friends.
Yeah.
So we really have made a concerted effort over the last 13 years with them to make sure that we're there in the morning and we're there at night for dinner.
Before we go, I have to ask you on Wrexham. I'm curious as to the timing of the actual season for them and the actual season for you in putting on the documentary series to make sure that it's fresh. The Olympics have been going on, and they keep saying, if you don't want to know who just won all these things, close your ears and things. But you want to keep this lively as a sports event. To the viewers here, how do you do it?
Yes, so season 1, it didn't matter because no one was really following along. And then season 2, we went with that similar schedule, and turned out that a lot of people were following along with the season. And so we felt the show didn't air for 4 months after the season had ended, and it felt stale to me.
Right.
Even though I felt like the season was fantastic, it didn't feel like it was fresh or current. And so in season 3, we really pushed. I called John and asked him, is it okay if we really push and see if we can air to coincide with the end of the season? So the final episode being around the end of the football season, so it'll feel current. He was game for that, and so we really energized the crew, most specifically the post team, to accelerate. And that's what we did, and we wound up being able to come out only a few weeks after the end of the season.
So perfect, and that gives it a lot of kind of freshness, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, all this stuff, and then more, because now you're a team owner, and you've got them traveling the country here, and you've got a women's team, and you've got all this going on too. Another hat in that world.
Yeah, once again, it's just about partnerships and who you align yourself with. And we've just been so fortunate. I mean, for me, having a partner like Ryan, who is just everything that you want him to be, and is such a great role model for me because he's been doing this at the highest level for such a long period of time.
How did you meet him? How did you?
He slid into my DMs on Instagram. He texted me via Messenger on Instagram and said, "Hey, I'm a fan of yours. Just wanted to let you know." And so I responded. I'm obviously a massive fan of his, and then we became text buddies.
That's wild. Yeah, and now look, you're co-owners. Amazing. Well, welcome to Wrexham on FX, and nominated for all those Emmys. And It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia will never end. This is Rob McElhenney. Thank you for joining us on Behind the Lens.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man.